Hey guys, it's Al from Altruistic Channel, and I am so happy to tell you guys I'm actually going to be doing something brand new with the channel that I think is going to be very rewarding for everyone, and I just wanted to kind of share with you guys essentially what that's going to be. So, as many of you know, I am a very spiritual person, and I kind of quantify myself as a spiritual leader to some degree, in that I firmly believe that every human being has a soul, and I believe that everybody has the right to practice and believe in what they believe, and that the best way to honor our own faith is to allow everyone else to have theirs. And so, in place of just spreading that word, and the representation of God as I know it, and honoring the fact that you could believe in Allah or whoever you believe in, but bringing the word forth that it is now about unity and not about divisiveness, and bringing that message forward. But instead of doing it more on a one-on-one lecture, like to a small group of people or in a coaching scenario, I'm now branching into the actual teaching of it in a more direct approach here on YouTube. So I will be actually talking about the history of religion and the history of spirituality and leadership and how that all came to be in a series that I've already put together in writing, and now I'm gonna be videotaping it, and then putting it out there for you all. And so I wanted to kind of introduce the concept and the idea behind it. So when it comes to spirituality in general, a lot of people get hung up on a title or a name, and it becomes a very divisive sensibility to it. And that's not what it's meant to do, right? Like, it's meant to empower you to understand what things that you may not have control over, but give it some sort of reality or substance that you can believe in, and it anchors you in a place of believing that miracles can happen, or it represents hope and faith. And so, to that end, it's one of the purest things that you can have in the entire world, right? Like, it's something that everyone should hold dear life to. It's love. It's the pure incarnate version of God or Allah or whoever you believe in. So, but in order to get back to that, we have to kind of debunk all of the things that have happened with organized religion and specific houses of the house of God, and certain things, that have occurred that we need to acknowledge as a society in order to move past this point where there is really no clear spiritual center anymore. We went to the opposite extreme with, moral majority and all of that divisive, hate filled, all of that BS that didn't do anything but war and crime, and it just made things worse. But instead of making everybody feel bad about it, let's acknowledge the fact that their intention was to be of service to God or whoever they believed in. So, removing the guilt part of it will acknowledge the fact that it was there, it happened, and now let's rectify it. And in order to do that, we now have to go the other direction without going too extreme. And so, teaching kind of the principles behind how religion started, what God actually said. Is it possible, like, can we open our minds up to the possibility that it's not a literal thing that we're reading in the Bible? Like conversation pieces that is non aggressive and non divisive in nature. It doesn't shame anyone in what I'm doing. It's going to be very open. It's going to be the merging of science, philosophy, faith, religion, all of it tied together in a way that helps leaders around the world or in your own local communities or within your own household. And it helps you guide the conversation to a place where it's open and the other people are willing to listen to you. Because at the end of the day, you cannot change another human being's mind. It is ultimately up to that human being to empower themselves to change their own mind, right? So the idea of you trying to make someone else agree with you is already not going to work. It, it can't work because you would never let somebody else change your standards of living or your faith. So it's a dead end that we need to get past. But what we're encountering at this point is that everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are stuck with title and name deities, and their allegiance isn't to the house of God or to the house of spirit or faith or creator. It's to a name, almost like a fraternal bond, which is great in college. Like, oh look, here's my alpha pen. Like, great, but now we're adults and we have a world crumbling all over. We have children with semi-automatic weapons, and we're listening to, and I'm going to curse here, sorry, but assholes who are sitting there telling us that it's all right for them to have semi-automatic weapons. No, it's not. And instead of like us entertaining it, let's just end it. Just say no. But in order to do that, we would have to actually have an open conversation. And so we have like little roadblocks, like maybe political correctness being used as a Bible is a big roadblock. It's not meant to be a Bible. It was meant to help people. But instead, now it's being used in a way that's divisive, and it makes people feel as though they are being oppressed because it's now enforced over their rights. So you see what I'm saying? So it's that teeter-totter balancing that we need to get into. And so what I'll be talking about is literally that type of topic. But instead of just focusing on that, it'll also be the introduction of like sciences and logic and reasoning and how they actually marry each other and how the dynamics work between all of that. So we'll start like with something non-aggressive. I'll do like an introductory video, and then we will go into the less aggressive astrology as a great science introduction that has like a little bit of semblance as to who you are, because that leads very well into esoteric astrology, and then we can go further into esotericism, and then we'll go over a review of Christianity, Buddhism, Confucianism, like all of the different religions in a way that is not super intrusive into their faith, and because it's not, I don't want to come to it from a point of ever looking at something in a negative way. It's going to be all very positive. Controversy, you can read about it on your own and do all that stuff. For me, it's about the bonding agents between us all, right? So when we look at these topics, it won't be super engrossed in it. I'll leave that up to you as a citizen of the world. But I will present what each of them is and the history and kind of the major things that we should probably know about. Because in the process of doing that, we then do the greatest thing of all. We open it so that they can do that for us. See, everything in life at this point is reciprocal, right? So we're in these cycles that we're stuck in, and we need to break free of them. And the only way that we can do that is to stand in our truth, which is first to find our truth, which is the journey of spirituality. And a lot of people believe that to be the awakening process or ascension, which is it all varies as to what that means to you. But for us, that like for me, that believes in the collective consciousness, I'm not worried about the title. I'm not worried about, or I don't even care about affiliations to churches or if churches like me or not. Like that's it doesn't matter to me. That's not where God and I are at. God is in my heart, and I am bestowed the gift of being able to speak on that behalf because of my ability to be open and loving and wise and to engage knowledge and to read all of the stuff that comes with faith. So I'm not worried about the divisiveness. I just want to be all about the love. And so the bonding aspects are important. So by doing this and by opening that dialogue, in turn, it's like immediately the energy in the world gives it back to you. So it opens the dialogue in general, not just that spirituality doesn't stop there, because we're also dealing with leadership. And so with leadership, it also plays into politics. That's not my field. There are other masters that deal with that. For me, it's just I'm a spiritual person. That's where my focus is at. If you want to know directly all about esoteric astrology or esotericism, you go to Mr. Meter. If you want to know about how to publish a book, I would probably check out Miss Loria. If you want to know all about like how to be a super successful, intuitive, brilliant man, then you would go with Mr. Fox, JT Fox. Like there's all these people that have specialties in the planet that are free for you to learn from. And so it's now up to us to kind of take that and do something with it. And so that it's that empowerment that I want to bring forward. So beyond esoteric astrology, there's also the fact of like we go into Confucianism, we go into the Buddhism, we go into Taoism, we go into all of these different faiths and religious organizations and Baptists and so on and so on, and even into the Egyptian times and what they believed, the Mayans, all of that history, that deep, rich history. And in doing that, we open ourselves up to understanding that we're not that different. In fact, all of it's pretty much universally similar. Love, don't hurt each other. Like it's all relative to your perspective, but that requires listening to what is there, right? Like don't focus on what others have told you. It's now time for you to step up and be like, okay, what's this all about? And that engagement, you then help the world step up, because we're at a point, I'm honestly going to tell you guys, we're at the point where dad's home, and it's one of those moments where we can either come clean and be like, yeah, we had a party, or no, it wasn't us, it was the neighbor, but it's at our, like it. And so we're at that point of needing to address these concerns and what's going on. And so the best thing to do is always guide people from within. So the first step to any type of journey is to first acknowledge the fact that you are tired of burying your children. You are tired of watching people get mowed down at concerts. You're tired of people being gunned down for their sexuality at Pulse nightclub. You're tired of the presidential idiocracy that's going back and forth. Not the person necessarily, although, but I'm not getting into a political debate. It's about what it represents and the engagement of negativity and the divisive nature to it that where nobody can speak to anybody else. Are you still wanting to do that? Are you still, as a woman, wanting to fight for your rights to your own reproductive organs? You, as a guy, do you really need to fight another day against women because your dick is, sorry, your penis is small? Like, it's just, we're done. At some point, somebody has to say, we're done, stick a fork in it. And so that's where we're at. And so the best thing to do with that is to find your spiritual center, because it's going to affect your moral fiber and your ethics, and it's going to remind you of who you are. And it's that conversation with God or Allah or whoever you believe in that we really desperately need in order to build the communities that we are missing. And so we're going to engross ourselves in honoring each other, and in that way honoring ourselves in the way that God would have done for us. I mean, keep in mind that Christ washed someone's feet. Like, the least we can do is entertain and listen to the lecture and see, oh, I didn't know that that was true about Taoism, or I didn't know that that was good about Christianity. I didn't know that that was the only separation with Baptists. Like, it's just an empowering state to stand from. And it's just very important to start from that point in yourself. And so, like, especially with different faiths, each of them goes about it different ways. But the next process of that would be that you deal with the shadow side of yourself. And by the shadow, think of the moon where it casts a shadow. It's the darker aspect of the whole. It's still very much needed. It's a balance, right? You can't have light without dark. You can't have male without female. You can't have gay without straight. Like, everybody balances each other out. But you still want to look at it and you want to address it so that it's not out of control. Like, it's not, God has never said to anyone, as far as I know, that, at least not to me, he's never said, like, oh, you can't do this. Like, he specifically said some, like, things that we cannot do, but he never told us specific things like you can't smoke pot. Like, he's never said that, because it's a natural thing that we find on earth. But what he did say is don't get out of control. And so, in place, we have to roll back a little bit, I think, and open the dialogue to unveil what actually has been said and maybe what has not necessarily been said. It's been insinuated. And so just that, even in of itself, is a complicated subject. So it's going to be part of the process. But in order to do that, before we can even get to the table, you have to address it from within. And that it's that inside of you that's the scariest, because the devil's not outside, it's within each of us. And it's not the devil, like, that's going to come get you, evil spirit. It's ignorance, it's hatred, it's bigotry, it's homophobia, it's sexism, it's all of the things that are not acceptable in society that we all seem to be turning our blind nose to, if you will. And so by empowering yourself, by looking internally, you then will start to see how it externally affects that around you. Meaning that if you're constantly looking for negative experiences, you're going to constantly run across what kind of people? Negative people. If you are constantly in a state of victimization, then you're never going to see the sunlight in the way that it's meant to be seen. You're going to see it as reflective off of something else. So look at the sun. Look into the sun. The sun is beaming nutrients, vitamin D, and all these ultraviolet rays, and all these things that we need. But you're trained not to look at the sun. Okay, so don't look at it literally, but use your third eye or whatever you believe in and look to that. That's part of the secrets of life, is find the light. Even in acting, they say step into the light. So the point is, we can't really do that unless we look internally. And so that leads to, like, the collective consciousness and some of the things that they believe in, especially with the ascension process and the awakening. And a part of that is something called the dark night's journey. It's the soul's journey into darkness. And it's basically where at some point in lifetime after lifetime, if you believe in reincarnation, you have to face all of your all of your shit, all of your shadows, and you have to deal with it in a way that you take it and you empower yourself. And so that's what's happening now, but it's happening in a global setting. In order to put, you have to put chaos in order to create order. And so it's kind of like a process that has to happen. It's not something that I did or that you did, but it's just truth. And so as we find ourselves going through these things, we're going to be looking at it in this class type setting like this, where it's going to be one-on-one. but it's going to be to everyone that wants to partake, and it's going to just create that ambiance that we need to get through that part. So the first one will be specifically about like the introduction and what the intentions are, a little bit review like this, but the point is that it's going to be a little bit more expansive. It'll be astrology, and then it's going to go into esoteric astrology. So I hope you guys join me for this. It's going to be something very interesting and very fun to kind of do in a weird way. It's always fun to find out more information about the world at large. It's very rewarding to all of us, so it's just something that we should all probably do. But I hope to see you guys there. Please like or share or subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys during the first one coming out in a couple days.